Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a second you've invested in something, maybe shares in a company,
Right.
and everything seemed fine, aligned with your values when you bought in.
Yeah, happens all the time.
But then, things change. The company shifts direction. Maybe some new info comes out. And suddenly that investment, it just doesn't fit your ethical guidelines anymore.
Mm.
What do you actually do then? How do you get out of it in a way that, still honors your principles?
It's a really interesting challenge, and it goes beyond just feeling uncomfortable, right? In systems like Sharia finance, it becomes quite structured. There are actual guidelines.
Absolutely. And that's exactly where we're diving in today. We've got some sources here that tackle this very specific problem.
Yeah.
What happens when shares you already own become non-compliant with Sharia rules?
After the fact.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to explore these sources, understand the different expert takes on how, and maybe more critically, when you need to sell those shares.
And this is really for you, the listener, especially if you're keen on understanding how these big principles actually play out in, well, practical finance, and how experts sometimes interpret things a bit differently.
Okay, so let's jump in. The sources we looked at, they all seem to agree on one fundamental thing right at the start. What's that core principle?
Well, the core idea is pretty clear, thankfully. If shares you hold become non-compliant, selling them isn't really a choice. It's obligatory.
Obligatory.
Yeah, there's a strong consensus, an ijma, on this. And it's grounded in core texts, the Quran, specifically Surah Al-Hashr, verse 7, and also a hadith from Sahih al-Bukhari.
And the logic behind it is, well, pretty straightforward, isn't it? It's about avoiding what's prohibited, haram. If the investment itself becomes impermissible, you just can't keep holding it.
Exactly. You have to distance yourself. So the need to sell, everyone agrees. But, like with many things where principles meet the real world, the details get nuanced.
Ah, the nuances. That's where the differences pop up in our sources, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
The main disagreements seem to be around the timing. How quickly do you sell? And the method, like how do you figure out the rules? And importantly, what do you do with any profit you might have made while it was non-compliant? That's the purification or tathir part.
Okay, so sell, yes. How and when? Depends who you ask. Let's dig into the first methodology our sources lay out. Where should we start?
Well, one key source is the AAIO-IFI Sharia Standard No. 21. AAO-IFI is a major standard-setting body.
Right.
Their standard focuses a lot on monitoring compliance throughout the investment period and, crucially, purifying any forbidden gains, usually at the end of the financial year.
Okay, and they specifically address shares turning non-compliant.
They do, and they bring in this interesting concept of commitment.
Commitment. What does that mean in this context? Is it like how serious you were about being compliant?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's sort of about your initial intention and whether you were actively trying to follow the Sharia rules and monitor your investments, or if maybe you were a bit more passive. And whether that non-compliance happened with your commitment or without it changes the rules, particularly around purification.
Got it. That makes sense. So walk us through the two scenarios AAOIFI lays out based on this commitment idea.
Sure. So case one, non-compliance happens, but with commitment. You were trying your best, basically. The standard says disposal must be immediate.
Immediate.
The Arabic term is fawri. Now, purification is still required, but it's mainly about the ownership itself, and that's typically handled at the end of the financial period.
Okay, immediate sale if you were diligent. What about case two? Non-compliance happens without that commitment. Maybe you weren't paying close attention.
Disposal still has to be immediate. Fawri again. No delays allowed there.
It's still immediate.
But the purification rule is stricter. You still purify the ownership at year end, but you also have to purify any profit you made that's above the share's selling price on the very day that non-compliance was announced.
Ah, okay. So immediate sale either way, but if you lacked commitment, you have to give away any gain made after that violation point. It's almost like a penalty for not being vigilant, perhaps?
You could sort of see it that way, yeah. It incentivizes diligence. Now let's look at another approach. Our sources also mention the Dubai financial market, the DFM Sharia Standard No. 1. How does that compare?
The DFM, right.
So this standard is specific to their market context, obviously, and it brings in different factors than AAOIFI. It looks at commitment, yes, but also compares the purchase price to the eventual sale price.
Purchase versus sale price. Okay, so more variables.
Right, which leads to 4 scenarios instead of 2.
4 scenarios. Okay, let's take the first couple. These are where the purchase price is greater than or equal to the sale price. So you didn't necessarily make money on the share price itself.
Exactly. So DFM case 1, purchase price is greater than or equal to sale price, and you had commitment. Here again, the rule is sell immediately.
Immediate, like AIOIFI.
Yes. But interestingly, the source says profit from this specific sale does not need purification. Maybe the thinking is you didn't gain relative to your cost basis anyway.
Sell immediately, no purification if you were committed and the price didn't go up. Seems logical. Now, case 2 for DFM. Same price situation, purchase price greater than or equal to sale price, but this time without commitment.
Still sell immediately. But just like we saw with AAOIFI, that lack of commitment means purification. Any profit above the selling price on the day non-compliance was announced needs purifying.
Okay, so immediate disposal holds for these first 2 DFM cases. Purification still hinges on commitment. But the next 2 scenarios, they introduce a delay, don't they?
They do, yeah. Cases 3 and 4 are for when the purchase price was actually greater than the sale price.
Right.
So the share value has dropped since you bought it.
You're potentially looking at a loss.
Right. So case 3, purchase price, sale price with commitment. Here, the DFM standard gives you up to 30 days to sell.
30 days. That's quite different from Fowry, immediate.
It is. And if you had commitment, profit from the sale, again, does not need purification.
Interesting. 30 days. Why the delay there, especially if you were committed but the price dropped? Does the source explain the rationale?
The sources mostly state the rule itself, not always the deep why. But, one could guess that allowing 30 days when the price is down might be a practical nod. It gives you a bit more breathing room to sell without maybe taking a huge immediate hit, especially since you were trying to be compliant.
That makes sense. Balancing the principle with maybe some market reality for someone who wasn't negligent.
Okay, so finishing the DFM scenarios. Case 4. Prices dropped, purchase sale.
Yeah.
But you acted without commitment.
You still get that 30-day window to sell.
Still 30 days, okay.
However, no commitment means the purification rule applies again. You need to purify any profit exceeding the selling price calculated at the end of that 30-day period, not the violation day price this time. Wow, okay. So DFM brings in this conditional delay based on price movement, and the purification trigger point shifts to end of the 30 days, not the violation day if you lacked commitment. That's definitely different from AARIFI.
It really is. And then our third source, looking at rulings from the Bank Al-Bilad Sharia board, adds another layer of complexity with different variables and even longer timelines.
Bank Al-Bilad. Okay, how do they approach it? Their scenarios compare the purchase price to, what was it, not just sale price.
Right. They compare purchase price to the sale price plus any received profits, like dividends. That's a key difference in their baseline calculation. And of course, commitment still matters.
Sale price plus profits. Got it. Okay, yeah. Case 1 for Bank Al-Bilad. Purchase price is greater than or equal to that combined figure, sale price plus profits, and you had commitment.
According to this view, you have up to 90 days to sell.
90, 3 months. Compared to immediate or 30 days, that's quite a jump. Any insight into why their timing might be so different?
Again, the sources give us the rulings, less the detailed reasoning. It points to different expert interpretations on balancing, the urgency of disposal against maybe practicalities of divestment, especially if your total return hasn't exceeded your initial investment.
Okay, 90 days with commitment if you haven't really gained overall. Case 2. Same situation. Purchase price all sale plus profits, but without commitment.
Still up to 90 days to sell. But the familiar pattern. No commitment means purification is needed for profit exceeding the selling price on the day non-compliance was announced.
That violation day price trigger for purification when lacking commitment seems pretty consistent across the board, doesn't it?
It does seem to be a recurring theme, yeah. Now, the other 2 scenarios are where the purchase price is greater than the sale price plus received profits. Case 3, purchase price sale plus profits with commitment.
Okay, so you're definitely down overall, even counting dividends. And you were committed. What's the timeline here?
This is where Bank Al-Bilad offers the longest time frame we've encountered. Up to 1 year to sell.
A whole year.
A full year, yes. And if you maintain commitment, the source indicates profit from the sale does not require purification.
Wow. 1 year. That is a stark contrast to immediate disposal. Really highlights the spectrum of views. Okay, finally, case 4. Down overall, purchase sale plus profits, without commitment.
You also get up to 1 year to sell in this framework.
Yeah.
But lacking commitment means purification applies. Purify profit exceeding the selling price at the end of that 1 year disposal period.
Fascinating. Okay, just to quickly recap what we've sort of unpacked here across AAO, IFFI, DFM, and Bank Al-Bilad. It's quite a range of expert opinions on the same basic problem, isn't it?
Absolutely. The timelines for selling, they vary massively, immediate 30 days, 90 days, even a year. It really depends on the standard and the specific situation.
And the baseline for figuring out purification is different too. Is it just sale price? Or sale price plus those received profits?
Exactly. And then what profit you actually need to purify changes as well. Sometimes none, sometimes anything over the violation day price, sometimes over the price at the end of your selling window.
And the constant thread through all of them, it seems, is commitment. That idea of your intention and diligence. It consistently affects whether and how you purify in, well, every single method we looked at.
It really underscores why understanding these different takes is so important for you, the listener, especially if you're navigating Sharia-compliant finance. It shows that turning broad principles into hard financial rules isn't, a single straightforward path.
Yeah.
Different experts, different bodies, they can arrive at perfectly valid but quite different conclusions based on how they weigh things.
And those differences really matter in practice, how fast you have to sell, what you do with the money. It just shows the kind of complexities people and institutions face trying to stay compliant.
It really does. So we've seen these three quite distinct ways experts guide investors on getting out of non-compliant shares, each with its own timing, calculations, and purification rules.
The fact that you have these different yet expert-supported valid approaches for the exact same issue, a stock becoming non-compliant, it does make you think, doesn't it? It raises this really interesting question for us to ponder. What does this variation actually tell us about the whole process of translating big ethical or religious principles into specific, actionable financial rules? And looking ahead, how might someone, an individual investor or big institution, actually decide which of these valid interpretations they should follow? And what could the impact of these variations be, in a global market that seems increasingly focused on ethical and principled investing? Does it create confusion or maybe needed flexibility?
That's definitely something to chew on as you reflect on this deep dive.